On the morning of Christmas Eve, Amara Afalabi stared at the red envelope on her kitchen counter as if it might disappear if she looked away long enough. Her apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft sound of traffic rising from the Lagos street below. Sunlight touched the edge of the envelope, making the gold seal gleam. She already knew who it was from. Nobody else sent invitations like they were royal decrees. The Afolabi family Christmas dinner. For almost a year, nobody from that house had called her, unless it was to ask something cold, formal, or unnecessary. Nobody asked how she was doing. Nobody asked whether her son, Kobe, still had nightmares after losing his father. Nobody asked if December was hard for her, the way it always was. But now, suddenly, her family wanted her present at their perfect holiday table. Amara finally picked up the envelope and opened it with careful fingers. Inside was a thick cream card with elegant handwriting. Christmas is for family. Be there by 7 p.m. sharp. No greeting, no affection, no apology, just instruction. A humorless smile touched her lips. Family. That word had always sounded beautiful in public and cruel in private when it came to the Afolabis. From the small sofa behind her, 8-year-old Kobe looked up from the toy car he was pushing across the cushion. "Mom, is that from Grandpa?" Amara turned and saw the hope in his eyes. That same hope he carried every time her family was mentioned, as if children naturally believed love would eventually arrive if they waited long enough. Her chest tightened. "Yes," she said quietly. His whole face brightened. "Can we go this time? Maybe he'll let me sit near him at dinner." Those words hurt more than the invitation itself. Kobe barely understood the history. He only knew that his grandfather had a big house, that his aunt wore expensive dresses, and that every time they visited, his mother came home quieter than before. Still, he wanted to belong there. Children always did. They didn't know that some rooms were full of people who could smile without warmth. Amara walked over and sat beside him. She brushed her hand over his hair and forced softness into her voice. "Why do you want to go so badly?" He shrugged with that innocent honesty only children have. "Because it's Christmas. Families are supposed to be together." Amara looked away for a second because she didn't trust her face. If Kobe had been older, he might have seen what that sentence did to her. But he simply leaned against her arm and kept talking. "And I still have the bow tie from school picture day. The blue one. I can wear it." She laughed very lightly, but there was pain under it. "You really want to wear that tie, huh?" He nodded seriously. "Yes, I want Grandpa to see I look smart." That broke something in her quietly. Years ago, Amara Afolabi had once believed love worked the same way. She thought if she studied hard enough, behaved well enough, forgave quickly enough, and carried herself with enough grace, her family would love her without conditions. It took life a long time to teach her that some people only understand power, status, and usefulness. Love has no value to them unless it improves their image. Still, Kobe was looking at her with trust, not fear. And because he was her son, because he had already lost enough tenderness in life, she could not bring herself to say no. So that night, after he fell asleep with one arm around his toy car, Amara picked up her phone and sent a short message. "We'll be there." The typing bubble from her mother appeared for a second, then vanished. No reply came. Amara set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. She already knew exactly what kind of night it would be. 10 years earlier, Amara had been the pride of the Afolabi family.
Chief Bamidele Afolabi, owner of Afolabi Heritage Bank, used to introduce her at corporate dinners with visible pride. She had graduated top of her class in economics. She was poised, articulate, elegant, and disciplined. Her mother, Eunice, loved telling church friends that Amara had the mind of a minister and the face of a magazine cover. Her younger sister, Temi, though competitive, still admitted that Amara was the one people naturally respected. Back then, Amara believed she had a place in that family. Then she fell in love with a man her father did not approve of. His name was Tunde. He was not from a banking dynasty. He was not the son of a senator, a governor, or a billionaire industrialist. He was an engineer who came from an ordinary family and had the sort of quiet confidence rich men often underestimate. He was brilliant, kind, and deeply sincere. To Amara, he felt like peace. To her father, he felt like insult. Chief Bamidele had already imagined a different future for her. He wanted a strategic marriage, the kind that merged wealth, influence, and headlines. He wanted an alliance. Amara chose love instead. The day she told her family she was marrying Tunde, the house went cold. Her mother cried first, not out of happiness, but out of fear of embarrassment. Temi called it reckless.
But her father stood up from his study chair, walked slowly to the window, and said in a voice Amara never forgot, "If you leave this house to build a life beneath your standard, don't come back here expecting applause." She married Tunde anyway. For a while, life was hard but honest. They lived in a modest home. They worked long hours. They built their own routines. When Kobe was born, Amara thought maybe the sight of a grandchild would soften her father's pride. She was wrong. Chief Bamidele visited once, stayed less than 15 minutes, and spent more time criticizing the neighborhood than holding the baby. Then, tragedy came. Tunde died in a highway collision while traveling back from Ibadan after inspecting machinery for a client. Amara received the call just before dawn. One moment she was half asleep. The next moment, her world split open. She remembered the funeral as a blur of heat, black fabric, and voices that sounded far away. She remembered Kobe crying because everyone else was crying. She remembered standing like stone while people told her God knew best. But what she never forgot was what happened 2 weeks later inside her father's drawing room. She had gone there hoping, foolishly, that grief might make them human. Instead, her father looked at her with hard disappointment and said, "From the moment you chose that man, everything around you started breaking. You reject wisdom, and now your son will grow up in the ruins of your stubbornness." Amara stared at him, unable to breathe. Her mother did not correct him. Temi looked down at her phone, and Chief Bamidele, seeing the devastation on Amara's face, delivered the sentence that followed her for years. "You carry misfortune like a shadow," he said. "You are becoming the family curse." She left that house that day, carrying Kobe on one hip and a grief so deep it nearly swallowed her whole. But pain has a strange habit. If it does not kill you, it begins to carve room for something stronger. The first 2 years after Tunde died were brutal. Amara sold jewelry. She sold handbags people once complimented her for. She took consulting work no one in her old circle would have respected. She stayed up nights with spreadsheets while Kobe slept beside her on a mattress because she couldn't afford a proper bed frame yet. There were mornings she ate nothing but tea so there would be enough food left for her son. What nobody in the Afolabi mansion knew was that grief sharpened her. Tunde had always believed banking in Nigeria was failing the people who needed it most: small traders, market women, transport workers, widows, repairmen, teachers paid late, families with no collateral and no connections. He used to say the problem was not that poor people lacked discipline. It was that the system was designed to ignore them unless they were already profitable. After he died, Amara kept hearing his ideas in her mind. And because she had nothing left to lose, she began building. At first it was simple. She helped market women organize saving circles with better tracking. Then she created a tiny lending structure through a network of mobile agents. Then she partnered with a software developer from Java who believed her model could scale. She studied payment behavior, local trust patterns, seasonal borrowing cycles, and community risk better than people with giant salaries and polished titles ever had. She did not have a grand office. She did not have a billboard. She did not even have enough cash in the beginning to impress anyone. What she had was clarity. She understood people because pain had stripped illusion out of her. 5 years later, the modest project she started in survival had grown into a respected financial technology company operating across several states. It served the very people traditional banks had looked down on for decades. Women in open markets used her platform. Commercial drivers used it. Cooperative groups used it. Small manufacturers used it. Her repayment rates were so strong that international development funds started asking questions. Investors started requesting meetings. Analysts started noticing that one quiet company was doing what legacy institutions kept promising and failing to do. Amara kept all of it private. No social media displays, no magazine features, no luxury interviews. Even when she moved into a better apartment and later into a beautiful penthouse with a sea view, she told nobody in her family. Let them believe what they wanted. Let them keep their version of her. A struggling widow, a soft target, a cautionary tale. Because sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is strategy. On Christmas Eve, she dressed Kobe first. He stood in the bedroom wearing dark trousers, polished shoes, and the blue bow tie he had insisted on saving for the occasion. He looked so proud of himself that Amara smiled despite everything. "How do I look?" he asked, spreading his arms. "Like trouble in a very expensive package," she said. He laughed. "Do I look rich?" She knelt and fixed his collar. "You look loved. That matters more." He considered that seriously, then nodded. Amara dressed in a fitted emerald gown that was elegant without trying too hard. Gold earrings, clean makeup, no dramatic jewelry. She had no interest in competing with the room she was walking into. She had long ago learned that true power never needs to shout. The drive to Ikoyi felt longer than usual. As their car approached the Afolabi estate, Christmas lights wrapped around the front gate and palm trees, making the mansion look almost magical from a distance. Expensive cars lined the driveway. Uniformed staff moved quickly between the entrance and the rear service area. Through the tall windows, she could already see warm light, chandeliers, and bodies dressed in wealth. Kobe pressed his face slightly toward the window. "Wow." Amara reached for his hand. "Stay close to me." The moment they entered, the temperature of the evening shifted. Not openly, not dramatically, just enough. Conversations softened. Eyes turned. A few smiles appeared too quickly. A few others vanished too slowly. The Afolabi family had always been excellent at public politeness. Their cruelty usually wore perfume. Temi was the first to approach. She floated over in a fitted silver dress, holding a champagne flute and the sort of expression that pretended warmth while measuring everything. "Amara," she said, air kissing one side of her face. "You actually came." Her eyes dropped briefly over Amara's dress. The pause was tiny, but Amara noticed it. Kobe smiled up at his aunt. "Merry Christmas, Auntie Temi." Temi touched his shoulder lightly. "Oh, Merry Christmas." Then she turned back to Amara. "I'm surprised. I thought you preferred smaller rooms these days." Amara held her gaze calmly. "I prefer peaceful ones." Temi's smile tightened. Before either of them could say more, Eunice arrived. Already wearing that anxious hostess expression women develop when they care more about appearances than truth. "Thank God you're here," she said. "Important people are present tonight, so please, let's avoid any awkwardness." Amara almost laughed. She had not been in the house 5 full minutes, and already she was being warned not to disturb the illusion. "I'm here for Kobe," she said. Eunice nodded too quickly and turned toward approaching guests, transforming instantly. "Welcome! So lovely to see you," she sang, as if the woman who had just whispered a warning to her daughter did not exist. Amara watched her and felt nothing. That was new. For years, her mother's indifference had cut deeply. Now it barely landed. Maybe healing does not always feel like warmth. Sometimes it feels like numbness where pain used to live. The house was exactly as she remembered. Polished floors, curated art, over-designed floral arrangements, and a dining setup so expensive it looked staged for a magazine. Waiters moved with disciplined efficiency. Laughter rose from circles of guests discussing politics, foreign schools, real estate, elections, and holiday travel. Chief Bamidele stood near the main fireplace, speaking to a cluster of men in dark suits. He had aged, but not softened. His posture still carried the arrogance of a man who believed the room owed him attention. When he finally noticed Amara, his expression changed only slightly. Not delight, not surprise. Something closer to irritation. Kobe squeezed her hand. "Should I go say hello?" Amara looked at her son's face and hated the answer she wanted to give. "If he comes near us, be polite," she said carefully. Kobe nodded, though disappointment flickered across his features. Throughout the evening, the pattern repeated itself. People were civil to Amara, but only in the shallow way people are civil when they assume your relevance has expired. Nobody asked what she was working on. Nobody asked how she and Kobe had managed. But she heard enough fragments in the room to understand the image her family had preserved of her. She never really recovered after her husband died. "I heard things became difficult financially." "Such a pity. She was the brightest one once." Chief must have been heartbroken. Amara carried herself through the room like someone walking through light rain. Not resisting, not absorbing, just moving. Kobe tried his best. He smiled at cousins who barely included him. He thanked servers more politely than half the adults did. He stood straighter every time he passed his grandfather, hoping to be noticed. Once, Amara caught him watching Chief Bamidele from across the room, with that small, aching patience children wear when they still believe approval can be earned. "Mom," he whispered, tugging her hand, "do you think Grandpa likes my tie?" Amara bent down and adjusted the bow beneath his chin. "Your tie is perfect." "But does he like it?" She swallowed. "If he doesn't, that's his loss." Dinner began just after 8. The long table glowed under candlelight. Crystal glasses reflected the chandelier in sharp little stars. Christmas arrangements sat between serving dishes rich with color and heat. It was the kind of table designed to announce success before anyone even sat down. Amara and Kobe were seated far enough from the head of the table to make a point. Temi sat close to their father, radiant and loud, discussing destination wedding possibilities with an enthusiasm sharpened by the fact that everyone was listening. Guests praised her taste, her elegance, her future. Chief Bamidele visibly enjoyed every second. Amara helped Kobe with his napkin and quietly served him rice and chicken before touching her own plate. For a while, the conversation stayed polished. Banking, regulation, foreign exchange, family name, legacy. The usual subjects wealthy people use to flatter themselves into believing money is wisdom. Then, one of Chief Bamidele's longtime associates lifted a glass and joked, "Chief, a man with your influence should be celebrating only good headlines at his table tonight." Laughter rose politely. Temi smiled. "Well, some children understand how to protect a family name." There it was, that familiar shift. The room leaning toward cruelty while pretending not to. Amara kept her eyes on Kobe's plate. Chief Bamidele dabbed the corner of his mouth with a napkin, then stood slowly. The room followed him into silence without being asked. He loved that power. Always had. "To family," he said, lifting his glass. Everyone responded. He looked around the room with satisfaction. A good family is built on discipline, choices, and honor. Some children multiply what they inherit. He turned slightly toward Temi. And some, his eyes moved to Amara, bring nothing but disorder, shame, and bad fortune. Nobody spoke. Kobe looked up, confused. Chief Bamidele continued, his voice calm enough to be crueler than shouting. There are people who walk into a room and carry blessing. And there are those who walk through life like a curse attached to the family name. The words landed like glass breaking inside Amara's chest. Not because they were new. Because he had chosen Christmas. He had chosen a full room. He had chosen her son, sitting right there. The table remained frozen in expensive silence. Temi looked down, pretending discomfort, though satisfaction flickered at the edge of her mouth. Eunice stared at her plate. Not one person challenged him. Then Amara felt Kobe tug her sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, too softly for anyone else to hear. "What is a curse?" That was the moment something irreversible happened inside her. Not heartbreak. Heartbreak had happened years ago. This was colder. She placed her fork down carefully and wiped her fingers with the napkin as if nothing in the room had cracked. Her voice, when it came, was calm. "We're leaving." Kobe immediately obeyed. He was a good child. Too good. He slid carefully from his chair and stood beside her, small hand searching for hers under the table. Chief Bamidele's voice cut across the room. "Sit down." Amara turned slowly. "No." The single word shocked the room more than his insult had. He stepped away from his chair. "You always perform this same drama. You make reckless choices, then act wounded when consequences follow." Amara's face remained still. "I did not come here to be insulted in front of my son." "And yet insult seems to follow you everywhere," he replied. "Interesting, isn't it?" Several guests shifted uncomfortably now, but still nobody interrupted. Chief Bamidele pointed toward the entrance. "If you cannot respect this house, take your child and leave it." Kobe flinched. Amara felt his fingers tighten around hers. In that instant, she no longer cared about the room, the guests, the holiday, or the years of swallowed humiliation. The only thing she saw was her son, standing in polished shoes and a blue bow tie, trying not to cry because a grown man with power had decided to make him feel unwanted on Christmas. Amara picked up her clutch. She did not beg. She did not defend herself. She did not cry. She simply turned and began walking toward the front hallway with Kobe beside her. Behind them, no apology came. No one called them back. Only the music continued, soft and fake, like the rest of the house. They were almost at the entrance when her phone started ringing inside her bag. Amara ignored it at first. Then it rang again. She took it out while still walking and glanced at the screen. Zainab Bello, lead counsel. Her expression shifted slightly. Kobe looked up. "Mom?" "1 second," she answered in a low voice. "Zainab, I can't speak right now." But before she could lower the phone fully, Kobe moved closer and accidentally nudged her arm. The phone slipped slightly in her grip and the speaker mode activated. Zainab's voice filled the entrance hall, bright with urgency. "Amara, it's done. The final shares just cleared. Congratulations. You officially hold controlling ownership of Afolabi Heritage Bank." Silence. Real silence this time. Not the rehearsed silence of polite society. The shocked kind. The kind that strips masks off faces. Amara stopped walking. Slowly she turned. Across the room, Chief Bamidele had gone completely still. Temi's color vanished. One of the men near the fireplace whispered, "What did she say?" Zainab continued, unaware of the scene she had just detonated. "The board signed. The emergency debt transfer is complete. Effective tonight, the bank is yours." Amara closed her eyes for half a second. She had planned the public announcement for the following week. Legal, controlled, clean. Not like this. Not after being thrown out of her father's Christmas dinner. But timing has its own sense of justice. "I'll call you back," she said quietly. The line ended. Nobody in the house seemed to know what to do with their face. Chief Bamidele was the first to speak, though his voice sounded thinner than she had ever heard it. "What exactly was that?" Amara looked at him calmly. "Exactly what you heard." "That is impossible." "No," she said. "It's final." The room erupted into low, confused murmurs, because everyone there understood what Afolabi Heritage Bank meant. It was not just another business. It was Chief Bamidele's identity, his influence, his ego in institutional form. The bank funded the family image, the political dinners, the memberships, the lifestyle, the illusion of untouchability. And now the daughter he had just called a curse owned it. One of the older guests cleared his throat. "Chief, is the bank in distress?" Chief Bamidele ignored him. His eyes stayed locked on Amara. "Who gave you access? Who have you been speaking to?" Amara almost smiled. "You spent years assuming I was too broken to build anything," she said. "You never thought to ask what I was learning while you were busy dismissing me." Temi found her voice first. "Amara, stop making this sound dramatic. Maybe there's some misunderstanding in the paperwork." "There isn't." Eunice stood suddenly. "You bought the bank? How? Why would you do such a thing without telling us?" Amara turned to her mother. "Without telling you?" The words were soft, but Eunice stepped back as if slapped. Chief Bamidele moved closer now, lowering his voice because public humiliation only felt acceptable when he was the one delivering it. "That bank was not available to you."
It was available to whoever was willing to take on its hidden liabilities, Amara said. His jaw tightened. That answer told the room everything. The bank had been weaker than he had allowed anyone to know. Too many bad debts. Too much image, not enough stability. Too much pride. Too little adaptation. A legacy institution pretending the future was still afraid of the past. Amara saw several guests connect the dots in real time. One man near the center of the table spoke carefully. There were rumors about a fintech group acquiring distressed positions quietly through proxies. Another woman turned toward Amara. That was you? Amara nodded once. The room shifted again. Respect, embarrassment, disbelief, all mixing together. Chief Bamidele looked as if the floor beneath him had become unreliable.
You built a company large enough to acquire my bank? Amara met his gaze. Not your bank. A failing institution with your name on it. The insult hit because it was true. Temi's voice came out brittle. So all this time, you were hiding money from the family? Amara looked at her. From the family? No. I was protecting peace from people who only remember blood when wealth is involved. Nobody answered. Because again, it was true. Eunice pressed one hand against her chest. Amara, we are still your family. Amara glanced down at Kobe. He was quiet, confused, still holding her hand, still wearing the bow tie he wanted his grandfather to notice. Then she looked back up. When my husband died, did you feel like family? Eunice's mouth opened, then closed. When my son asked for kindness, did this room feel like family? No answer. When your husband called me a curse in front of my child, did silence feel like family? The room grew heavier. Chief Bamidele straightened, trying to retrieve authority through posture, if not fact. Whatever game you are playing, ownership does not erase blood. Amara's expression hardened for the first time. No, but blood also does not erase cruelty. For years she had imagined what this moment might feel like if it ever came. She thought revenge would feel hot, satisfying, triumphant. It didn't. It felt clear. That was all. Clear. Clear that people who enjoy humiliating you do not deserve private loyalty. Clear that her son should never again be taught to beg for scraps of affection. Clear that money reveals character. It does not improve it. Chief Bamidele took another careful step forward. We should speak privately. Amara almost laughed at that. Minutes ago he had wanted an audience. Now he wanted privacy. Temi rushed in next, smiling too brightly. Exactly. This is Christmas. Families say terrible things sometimes. Let's not make permanent decisions based on emotions. Amara stared at her. Permanent decisions, she repeated. You think the decision happened tonight? Temi's smile faded. The decision happened every time you watched me be diminished and said nothing. Every time you enjoyed being the acceptable daughter while I became the warning story. Eunice's eyes filled with tears now, but Amara no longer trusted tears that only arrived after power shifted. Chief Bamidele tried one last tactic. That bank carries our legacy. Amara nodded slowly. That is precisely the problem. Legacy became more important to you than people. Then she crouched down in front of Kobe, softened her face, and fixed the edge of his jacket where it had folded inward. Are you okay? She asked. He whispered. Did Grandpa mean I'm a curse too? That question moved through the room like judgment. Several guests looked away immediately. Amara held her son's face gently in her hands. "No," she said with absolute steadiness. "You are not a curse. You are the reason I survived." Kobe blinked, then nodded. Amara stood back up and turned toward the family one final time. "I did not buy that bank to punish you," she said. "I bought it because institutions like yours have spent too long feeding on image while ordinary people carry the cost. I bought it because the future belongs to those you ignored. And I bought it because I learned a long time ago that if I ever wanted safety for my son, I could not build it inside this house." No one interrupted. Even the staff had gone still. Chief Bamidele looked older now than he had at the start of the evening. Not from time, from collapse. "If you do this publicly," he said quietly, "people will talk." Amara held his gaze. "They already did." Then she turned and walked out with Kobe. This time, nobody told her to stop. The next weeks changed everything. The official announcement came out Monday morning. Financial press picked it up by noon. Analysts called it one of the most unexpected restructuring moves of the quarter. A rising financial technology firm with strong grassroots penetration had acquired controlling interest in a traditional legacy bank drowning in concealed weaknesses. The articles praised the move as bold, intelligent, and symbolic of a broader shift in African finance. Chief Bamidele's phone did not stop ringing. Neither did Amara's. But unlike her father, she answered with preparation. The first thing she did was freeze luxury discretionary spending linked to the bank. Then she ordered a review of politically motivated lending practices, inflated vendor contracts, and executive abuse. She kept staff employed where possible. She protected small depositors first. She expanded community banking access. She redirected capital toward the underserved markets her company already understood. Everything Chief Bamidele had mocked became the bank's future. Market women who were once invisible to his institution became priority clients. Informal cooperatives gained better credit access. Digital onboarding replaced outdated gatekeeping. Branches began shifting culture. Slowly, the bank stopped performing wealth and started serving people. That was the part that bothered him most. Not merely that Amara had taken control, that she was right. Temi's wedding shrank quietly. Eunice stopped attending certain church functions for a while because sympathy had turned complicated. And the guests from that Christmas dinner, the same ones who had watched in silence, suddenly found reasons to mention Amara's brilliance whenever her name came up in conversation. But she noticed something important through all of it. Success did not heal what family had broken. It simply made the truth impossible to deny. One evening, a month after Christmas, Amara sat on the balcony of her penthouse while the city lights shimmered beyond the lagoon. The air was cooler than usual. Inside, a soft jazz record played low. Kobe sat on the outdoor sofa beside her in socks, half wrapped in a blanket, eating chin-chin from a small bowl and swinging his legs. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Then Kobe asked, "Mom?" "Yes?" He looked out at the city. "If people call you something bad for a long time, does it become true?" Amara leaned back and studied him carefully before answering. "No," she said. "Not unless you hand them your mirror." He frowned a little. "What does that mean?" "It means some people will name you based on what makes them comfortable. Weak, small, broken, too much, not enough. But that is only their version of you. It is not your truth. Kobe thought about that with the seriousness children sometimes bring to life's biggest questions. So what are we? Amara smiled then. A real smile. The kind that comes after surviving something final. We are not what they called us, she said. We are what we built after they did. He leaned against her side, satisfied with that answer. For a long moment, Amara looked out over Lagos and let the silence around her remain gentle instead of heavy. Below her was a city full of people carrying invisible battles. Above her, a dark sky with no need to explain itself. Beside her, the only opinion that truly mattered. Her son. The child they had nearly taught to confuse rejection with worth. Never again. Months earlier, Chief Bamidele had called her the family curse in a room full of witnesses. In the end, he learned what powerful people always learn too late. The one they shame today may become the one who decides tomorrow. And Amara Afolabi, the widow they underestimated, the daughter they discarded, the woman they mistook for silence, had not returned to their table for acceptance. She had returned for closure. And she left with something better than revenge. She left with freedom.